Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to get into this article. Trump has hurt American workers. And this is coming from this charge comes from the AFL-CIO President Richard Trumka. Okay, so he's like the CEO or the head of everything here in terms of union workers. So President Donald Trump has done more to hurt American workers than help them. The leader of the largest federation of unions in the nation declared on Sunday. So the union workers will likely support the Democratic candidates in November, predicted by the AFL-CIO President Richard Trumka. So basically, all this stuff that we hear in the news, which quote unquote is supposed to be, if it's coming from the president, the real news, states that, oh, there are more Black people and more people employed, and wages are good, and we're hearing something totally different. Okay, and we're hearing it from the person that is over this. So Trumka also said that Trump's proposed replacement for the North American Free Trade Agreement won't work without Canada. So that pointedly contradicts claims by Trump that Canadian participation isn't necessary in his new trade pact. So there was so much debating back and forth with Canadian officials from Trump, stating that he was going to disconnect himself or disassociate himself, when this is saying totally the opposite. And so he's going to need these countries in order to thrive in these political arenas. So as for workers, unfortunately, to date, the things that he has done to hurt workers outpace what he has done to help the workers, said Trumka, who represents more than 12.5 million people. So through unemployment, he says, though the unemployment is down, wages also have been down. And so a lot of people have been saying this, but what you say is looked at as fake news if it's not coming from the president, of course. So it goes on to say that so overall workers aren't doing as well, Trumka told Chris Wallace on Fox News on Sunday. So he's basically telling the truth about how these jobs and how people, workers in America are faring. So in addition, Trump hasn't come up with an infrastructure program that could put a lot of us back to work, Trumka added. He overturned some health and safety regulations that will hurt us on the job. The president also helped scuttle an Obama administration Labor Department rule that would have extended overtime benefits to close the 5 million workers, Trumka said. Come November, Trumka said it probably will be Democrats his members support, because Democrats support working people more than the Republicans do. But the decisions will be made candidate by candidate, because it goes on. I'm trying to move down here. And it's not a long article. Okay, so it's about electing people who will support working people, he said. So as for NAFTA, he said that the economies of the US, Mexico, and Canada are so integrated that it's pretty hard to see how NAFTA replacement would work without having Canada in the deal, he added. So we're anxious to move forward with a new agreement, anxious to have all three countries involved in this. And so he said that NAFTA has a devastating effect on the working people of this country for the last 25 years. So we've been aggressively pursuing an agreement that works for the workers in all three countries. And I can say we're not done yet. So he said the unions were seeking a way to monitor the trade deal compliance regardless of who is the president. So we've been told for over 25 years, trust this agreement will be good for the workers. And what we need is an agreement that we can enforce no matter who is in the White House in office, he said. So Trump's threatened Saturday to scuttle the NAFTA and the negotiation and negotiate a new bilateral trade deal with Mexico only. So it's basically like he's trying to shut out Canada. So he's saying that there is no political necessity to include Canada. I'm pretty much saying, because I've heard a lot of fighting about, oh, we're going to keep Canada out of this and Canada out of that. And so when Canada is beneficial for all of this. And so it goes on to state, this is Donald Trump's tweet here, there is no political necessity to keep Canada in the new NAFTA deal. If we don't make a fair deal for the U.S. after decades of abuse, Canada will be out. Congress should not interfere with these negotiations, or I will simply terminate NAFTA entirely, and we will be far better off. And so a lot of people reacted from all of this. So talks between the White House and Canadian leaders broke down Friday after the Toronto Star published the damaging off-the-record comments Trump made in previous days in a Bloomberg interview. So Trump, he said that he wasn't going to make any concessions to Canada in negotiation. And apparently furious Trump then blasted Bloomberg in the tweet for leaking the quotes. So he shouldn't have said those things. Like, first of all, if you're the president of the leader of the free world and you're the president of the country, and what you're tweeting out or what you're saying, the journalist and your mainstream media is going to be all over it. And so don't put it out there if you don't want them to print it, because that's what journalists do when they see these things. So here it is. Donald Trump, his tweet is, wow, I made off the record comments to Bloomberg concerning Canada, and this powerful understanding was blatantly violated. Oh, well, just more dishonest reporting. Here we go with the fake news. I am used to it. At least Canada knows where I stand. So on Sunday, the Toronto Star reporter Daniel Dale tweeted that the information did not come from Bloomberg. He said he didn't want to be a party of the president's smearing of excellence and ethical journalists. And so Daniel Dale is here in Twitter, and he said, I'd said that I wasn't going to say anything about my source for the quotes of Trump that made off the record to Bloomberg, but however, I don't want to be a party to the president's smearing of excellence ethical journalists. So I can say this, none of the Bloomberg interviewers was my source. So he's basically reiterating to Trump that it didn't come from, Bloomberg initially. So in a speech later on Friday in North Carolina at a rally in Charlotte, Trump again bashed Bloomberg. He's still going on at Bloomberg now, but he seemed pleased by the leak. But at least Canada knows how I feel, he said, so it's fine. So that's probably what he's saying here in this video of him right here. So President Trump said off the record, and then they go on to this. This is a first. these are very dishonorable people. But I said, in the end, it's okay because at least Canada knows how I feel, so that it is fine. So this is basically the article, and so there's a lot of comments and a lot of feedback behind all of this, but it doesn't seem like people are very happy about what has been going on. So my point for this article is, you notice how they all these, even like, let's bring the Black community in this as well, because the there was recently where Trump had visited the Carolinas. I believe it wasn't Georgia, it was the Carolinas. I think it was Georgia, and he met with a group of pastors, and they were saying, "Oh, he's doing a lot for the workers and the Black workers." I'm like, well, here you have the person that's in charge, basically saying that, yeah, you know, the wages are down. Well, why, if the wages were up, if people were working full time, making all this money, why do you have all these people now that can't even buy houses? Not only because their own problems, having the student loan debt, which we've heard of that, but also, some of the stuff, the money that the wages that people are making is not enough. It's not, it's livable to get by, but it's not livable where you have leverage where you can just like put money away to save for a home. I heard that the way the cost of living is, even in San Francisco, that some of the people that are making six figures can't even get into a house. Why is that? And it isn't all just because of student loan debt. So he's not really, what I'm saying is Trump doesn't really tell everything. He doesn't tell the truth. So there's a lot of untruths that are being told in terms of this working situation that people, and you got people that are ignorant that are out there. They're just touting the same lies that he's basically, the things he's saying. And, oh, we've got more jobs, more Black people are working, and all this kind of thing. Yeah, but are those jobs full time? What is the pay on those jobs? And then how much is the cost of living in these cities? You didn't talk about that, did you? And so these are the things that are irritating. You hear this, and like he says, as for workers, unfortunately, to date, things that has been done to hurt workers outpace is what he's done to what he's done to, he claims he's done to help workers. It's actually hurt. So okay, so anyway, it says that here is saying that he has done more to hurt American workers than help them. The leader of the largest federation of the unions in the nation declared this on Sunday, so which is today. This just came out. And so Trumka also said that Trump's proposed replacement of NAFTA, which is the North American Free Trade Agreement, won't work without Canada. And so that pointedly contradicts claims by Trump that Canadian participation isn't necessary in his new trade pact. So basically, he's backpedaling on the things that he's been saying has basically not been true. And so it says, as for workers, unfortunately, to date, the things that he has done to hurt workers outpace is what he's done to help workers, said Trumka, who represent more than 12.5 million people. Though unemployment is down, see, they always talk about unemployment being down and more people have jobs and all this kind of stuff. It says that the wages have also been down since the first of the year, he said. Gas prices have been up since the first of the year, so overall workers aren't doing well, Trumka told Chris Wallace. So, yeah, well, I did hear something about, they said that the gas prices were slightly going down, but they have been high. And so if you look at some of the cities, just for the rents of some of these apartments and some of the things, let's take LA for example. LA for, I'm not lying to you. For those of you that don't live in Los Angeles, rents for a decent apartment in Los Angeles, okay, decent apartment in Los Angeles, you're going to pay well over $2,000 a month. And that's if you're not on any programs or anything like that, subsidy programs or any conventional housing or anything like that helping you. You're going to pay sometimes even more than that, like $3,000 for a place that you're renting. And so this is the kind of stuff that Trump is not talking about. He obviously doesn't know, just like he didn't know about grocery shopping. He's never, he was saying something. This is, I can't recall all of what he said, but it was really something off the wall. And he said something, and it was really crazy because they cut out the food. They condensed or compacted the food program that they had, where now you got to get these food boxes and stuff like that for food stamp people or people who are on EBT, that they can't just go to the stores and go shopping like they used to. And at one while they were saying they were going to send them to a certain specific place to get their food and things like that. And then a lot of people were upset behind that because they said that it's basically like you're ostracizing people who are in poverty. You're making them inclusive in society, as if, oh, you all people that are needy, you go to this place to get your food, but all the people who aren't needy, you can go to the regular store. And that's the way it was looking, or at least that's the way it was sounding. And so I don't know if that's still in effect, because I'm not on any of that kind of stuff. But I've seen like videos where they showed the food boxes. It was awful. A lot of it looks like it's a lot of starches, a lot of salt, a lot of sugar. It's processed food, and it doesn't look like it's healthy at all. And so there's also where he keeps saying, you'll keep hearing like even those black people, well, there's more black people working and stuff. Well, do you know if those jobs are full-time? They may be part-time jobs, and they may have to get more than one job just to make ends meet. And so they never talk about this stuff, but yet they want to say all this stuff. And so basically Trump, sometimes he has to backtrack on what he says. So I know this is not about the workers per se, so I might have to change even the title, but I know this is not about the workers. But you remember, I don't know if anybody was paying attention, but do you remember when he had called himself going to see Kim Jong-un, and he was talking about a denuclearization program? They are not even doing that over there. They're still working on those missiles. There was an article this morning I saw where they said all that was for show. That's the way I looked at it from the beginning to the end. And then did you see that where Dennis Rodman, he was on, I believe it was on Fox News or somewhere, one of those media stations, and he was crying and bawling and, lifting up these people and talking about, oh, let's just not talk about being enemies. And he was going on and carrying on, and come to find out that, I had read something. I did a video about something that happened in history with the same group of people from North Korea, I believe. So it was stating that there was an issue where they tried to make a deal with them a long time back, and it wasn't even a month that went by, and there was no deal to be had. But anyway, okay, I'm trying to find it. I may not even be pronouncing his name right. So I'm sure it's going to talk about it somewhere. It's got to be in here somewhere. That they're still okay. Trump's North Korea push just got dangerous again after Oh, this is something else. Okay, so I'm right. Yeah, the North Korean leader. Just want to make that clear. As Kim Jong Un breakthrough turned sour. So already they're talking about this, and so it's the whole thing was a show, and it collapsed right between the eyes of folks. And some people were lifting it up, making it seem like, oh, he's really doing something. They're trying to make some kind of, agreement and all this kind of stuff. Come to find out that none of that is happening. Okay. So this was what happened. I don't know if you guys remember this right here. Where they were supposed to make this agreement, or it was a summit, a North Korean summit. Donald Trump says his warm relationship with Kim Jong-un means no need for war games. And so all of that I heard was not really working out well at all, that it basically fell through, that they said this was for show right here. And so let's see if I can find that article. Okay, some people say it was a success, but it wasn't. And so it actually, okay, it actually came up. Here we are right here. So this is a 2-for-1 video here. So Trump's meeting with North Korea has failed, is now looked at as a failed summit that was all about show, by Leon Panett. Okay. And so this is by Quinn Scanlane, or Scanlane. So I just desecrated your name. Sorry about that. ABC News. And so this goes along with the rest of it. This is basically uncovering a lot of things. This whole thing is all the stuff he's always saying that there's fake news. Whenever it's something about him that isn't good, it's fake news. Whenever it's something about what he's trying to push for his agenda, it's real news. And so here it's talking about, it even goes into the Mueller report, and it's bad. So, which some people wanted to impeach Donald Trump. He was saying that, oh, if you impeach me, you're going to be poor. And so it says, former defense secretary of the CIA director under President Obama said that he is very worried about the situation of the North Korea following President Trump and Kim Jong-un's failed summit that was doomed to failure, which I already knew before it even started that it was a failure. So Leon Panetta told This Week co-anchor Martha Raddatz in an exclusive interview aired Sunday that the June summit between Trump and North Korean leader was all about show. Exactly. So the problem is that in many ways it was doomed to failure from the beginning. Yep. Because there was never the preparatory work that has to be done prior to a summit meeting. So Panetta said that about the meeting between the two leaders in Singapore, they shook hands and they exchanged words. And so when the balloons went away, when the confetti went away, and there was nothing there required the North Koreans to do what was necessary in order to denuclearize, Panetta said on This Week. Okay, so here we go here. Trump announced August 24th that a planned trip, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, was canceled because the insufficient progress toward the ending of the North Korean nuclear program. Okay, so I have asked Secretary of the State Mike Pompeo not to go to North Korea at this time because I feel that we are not making sufficient progress with respect to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, the president had tweeted. So basically, it's like first he says, oh, it was a success. And now he's got to admit it's a failure. So Trump added that China wasn't helping with the process of denuclearization as they had once were. They never were, due to the US imposing tougher trade policies. And so Secretary Pompeo looks forward to going to North Korea in the near future, most likely after our trading relationship with China is resolved. Trump's continued, sending his warmest regards and respect to the chairman Kim. Okay, so it goes on to say that the president's comments came in contrast to remarks soon after the summit when he declared that Americans should sleep well because there's no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. So Panetta told Raditz what needs to be done now, because it was done before the summit, is the basic diplomatic work that looks at all the issues that are involved here, puts them all on the table, and begins a diplomatic process between the United States, North Korea, hopefully South Korea as part of that, as well as Japan. So we don't know where North Korea's nuclear sites are, which I saw something where they were showing where they were active and they were still open, even when during, before, and after the summit. So we have not developed any kind of inspection regime. And so all of that needs to be on the table, he said. That's what needs to be discussed. And we have yet to have a serious meeting on those issues. That's the problem. And so Raditz asked Panetta about the U.S. war in Afghanistan, which is approaching in its 17th year. So I think it is very important not to allow Afghanistan to collapse and then allow the Taliban to restore their influence. Restore their influence? They're already doing stuff still. They haven't restored. It's already happening, Panetta said. So I think that what is needed here is a strategy to secure the country of Afghanistan. So after 17 years, I feel like I've heard that before, Raditz press. So Panetta conceded she was absolutely right that she heard that before. So the problem is that the specific strategy for how we are going to deal with Afghanistan was never really laid out. All of this sounds like a bunch of people who don't really know what they're doing. But anyway, out by any administration, frankly, he said. So we have got to be able to secure. You hear that word, secure? We've got to be able to secure. We've got to be able to set up a regime to investigate. They haven't done anything. You want other people to do stuff, and you haven't done anything. So they're not going to do anything either. And they weren't doing anything before the deal, during the deal, and after the deal. And so that country, and allow it to govern itself. So it goes on to say that there is a lot of corruption. Right, there is a lot of corruption. You're just now saying that there's a lot of corruption, more than you know. So there's a lot of tribalism in that country. So we have not dealt with the problems of Afghanistan that have to be resolved if we're ever going to save Afghanistan, added. So that's pretty much the article. It's just like, I understand where they're coming from. They're talking about, they're basically saying what I'm saying, but in another form for media, this mainstream media and these people that talk a particular way. But none of this, it is for show. Look at all of this. They're not interested in being the friends of this man here in America. Think about it. I said that even in my video. I was like, is this the same president just not very many months ago called the North Korean leader Rocket Man? And they were fighting, debating all over social media, all over mainstream media, back and forth over issues, about some of these things that right now, that they're talking about. It's like it was failed before it started. So anyway, I just think that he's not, what I'm saying is I think that he doesn't tell the truth. This stuff like Trump, he's hurt the American workers. He gets up there and he says, oh, we created jobs. and we're about America, and we're doing this and we're doing that, and it's the total opposite. It's not what people think it is. And so anyway, it's just frustrating because I know some people who have to work 2 and 3 jobs, and they still are just barely getting by. Well, with that being said, I'm going to let this video go. I just think our whoever's in charge, he claims there's fake media, fake news, and recently I heard he said that Google was fake, YouTube was fake. No, the reason why it's fake is because those people are telling the truth about him, and it's things like this that when they come out and tell the truth about him, he doesn't like it, so he calls it fake. So with that being said, I'm going to let this video go. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening.